Good morning, investors. You are now on KleverStock with me, Ainun Jarya, serving you the latest morning bell updates. Kicking it off with the opening bell updates on our local market. Bursa Malaysia opened higher on Monday with the FBM KLCI rising above the key 1,600 level, buoyed by positive sentiment from Wall Street. At 9:05 a.m., the FBM KLCI was up 2.86 points to 1,601.09, following last Friday's close of 1,598.23. The benchmark index had opened slightly higher at 1,599.78. Now, market breadth was positive, with gainers outnumbering losers 183 to 118. Meanwhile, 273 counters were unchanged, 2,075 untraded, and 24 suspended. Moving on to local currency updates. The ringgit opened slightly higher against the US dollar on Monday, supported by Malaysia's stable sovereign credit outlook and stronger domestic economy data. At 8:02 a.m., the local note was quoted at 4.200 or 4.2200 versus the greenback, compared with Friday's close of 4.2040 or 4.2115. Now, Bank Muamalah Malaysia Berhad Chief Economist Dr. Muhammad Nizam Abdul Rashid said S&P Global Ratings' recent affirmation indicated that the government's sovereign rating remains stable. He said the country's fiscal consolidation exercise has contributed positively to its credit worthiness. Malaysia's fiscal deficit narrowed to 4.2% of gross domestic product GDP in the first half of 2025 from 5.5%, while the government debt level at 62% of GDP remains below the statutory limit of 65%. Now, on September 20th, the Ministry of Finance said S&P had reaffirmed Malaysia's sovereign credit ratings at A-, with a stable outlook, underscoring confidence in the country's macroeconomic management despite global trade uncertainty. It said the rating was supported by Malaysia's well-diversified economy, political stability, steady growth momentum, balanced external position, and narrowing fiscal deficit. Meanwhile, Muhammad Nizam said the US dollar index DXY had rebounded after the US Federal Reserve delivered an interest rate cut last week. He said the DXY is hovering around 97 points and may continue to do so as traders and investors await more signals this week. A series of Fed officials are due to speak at public forums, while data such as personal consumption expenditures, PCE inflation, will be closely monitored. SPI Asset Management Managing Director Stephen In said expectations of two more US rate cut this year should limit the ringgit's downside in the near term. He added this comes after what appears to have been a positive phone conversation between China's President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump on Friday, potentially paving the way for an in-person meeting at the 2025 APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in South Korea next month. Now, at the opening, the ringgit was also higher against a basket of major currencies. It rose versus the Japanese yen to 2.8348 or 2.8485, firm to 5.6540 or 5.6810 against the British pound, and strengthened to 4.9279 or 4.9513 versus the euro. The local note was firmer against ASEAN currencies. It advanced to 3.2670, 3.2830 versus the Singapore dollar, appreciated to 13.1707 or 13.2405 against the Thai baht, edged up to 252.9 or 254.3 versus the Indonesian rupiah, and strengthened to 7.35 or 7.39 against the Philippine peso. Continuing with some local economic updates, The 57th ASEAN Economic Minister AEM that kicks off Monday will see a redefined roadmap of Malaysia's economic goals that will bolster ASEAN's position amid the geopolitical uncertainties. The main components of this week's meeting is the conclusion of several regional agreements that will unlock ASEAN's potential in trade, sustainability and digitalization, amongst others. The efforts taken by Malaysia to enhance trade and investment with other member states shows its commitment to address economic headwinds as a result of the tariff imposed by the United States. The AEM and related meetings will be spearheaded by Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz. The 5-day meeting will begin with the 5th ASEAN Economic Task Force meeting, where 18 Priority Economic Deliverables (PED) will be among the key topics to be discussed. The PED was endorsed during the ASEAN Economic Ministers Retreat and is integral to the ASEAN Chairmanship as it serves as a cornerstone within the ASEAN Economic Community pillar. The 18 PED were built based on 4 key elements that are focused on enhancing trade and investment, developing an inclusive and sustainable pathway, integration of economies, and building a digitally resilient ASEAN. Another important meeting to note this week is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP) Ministers Meeting, where member states will prepare for the agenda that will be brought to the 47th ASEAN Summit in October. Highlight of the meeting is discussion on the next RCEP Leaders Summit. It was last held in 2019 with a virtual meeting in 2020. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim had previously stated that RCEP is the world's largest free trade area that covers 30% of global gross domestic product. As talks of tariffs take center stage since April, ASEAN member states are also meeting with the US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on September 24th to discuss related matters after the policy was implemented by Washington. Now, Malaysia was subject to a 90% tariff, down from the previously proposed 25% by the US. The same tariff rate also applies to Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia and Philippines. With all the meetings lined up for the week, the AEM is likely to highlight efforts on greater integration, policy harmonization and coordination that will benefit ASEAN as a whole. And now moving on to corporate news updates. The Real Estate and Housing Developers Association (REHDA) has called for a constructive collaboration between developers and Petronas Gas Berhad (PGB) as the utility seeks a formal role in state planning committees for projects near its gas pipelines. REHDA President Datuk Ho Hon Sang said, while the move could add another layer of approval to an already complex development process, it could also lead to a better integration of technical safety requirements if managed efficiently. He said currently developers have to go through 14 to 18 agencies for approvals. Adding one more will naturally complicate matters. But if we work with PGB effectively and productively, their requirements can be incorporated in a way that is sensible and reasonable. He said developers may not always be well versed in technical pipeline requirements, making PGB input valuable provided that conditions imposed are practical and do not undermine project feasibility. Ho cautioned that project costs could rise if PGB's responses are delayed. He said if the response is not timely, then it will affect compliance cost. However, he added that smooth communication and prompt decision-making could mitigate this. Drawing from his experience, Ho said some government departments can provide approvals within 1 to 2 weeks, suggesting that efficiency would depend on how both sides manage the process. Ho dismissed concerns that the move could create tension between developers and PGB, describing collaboration as the only way forward. He said in development, there are many things we have to take care of. And every additional requirement causes friction. It would be extremely difficult to do business. We know this is for the benefit of development, not for self-gain. Both parties should negotiate cordially and arrive at workable solutions. And finally, wrapping up, we have major corporate developments and deals across Malaysia. As the estate builder Berhad has entered into a joint venture agreement with Vanguard North Sdn Bhd to develop 4 parcels of land in Kubang Pasu Kedah with GDV of 663.4 million ringgit. Licensed Fleet Group Berhad is expanding beyond the offshore support vessel segment with the acquisition of 2 Korean flag Supramax box carriers for a total consideration of $27.5 million. Meridian Berhad has secured a 40.5 million ringgit contract to undertake main building and associated works for a government housing project in Kedah. From Maniaga, Berhad is acquiring a freehold factory and office building of 10,919 square foot meter of land in Seberang Perai Selatan, Penang for 30 million ringgit. And last but not least, the Employees Provident Fund has become a substantial shareholder of Johor-based bakery company SDS Group Berhad for the first time with a 5.1% stake. Now that's a wrap for Morning Bell updates with me, I'm Nujaria on KleverStock. Thank you for choosing us, investors. Stay tuned for the next live coming soon.